Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of AKP Sports Talk. I'm Korea. Look, it's Friday, September 6th here. Look, we've been getting ready for this day, obviously. Yesterday we had the beginning of the NFL season, and boy, what a beginning, shall we? Let's get right into it. Obviously, the recap of yesterday. We both hit, obviously, but mine was obviously the most sweatiest of unders you could have possibly have imagined. Obviously, I saw some people get it at 46 and a half, and I saw some people 47. Look, if you got it right where I said at 47 and a half, then obviously you won. If you got it at 47, you push, and if you got it at 46 and a half, I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry, but that over under was pretty much going. The total was going all around pretty much throughout the day, and I pretty much saw a consensus under around 47 and a half, or around that 46, 47 total. And obviously that was the winner there for us. Obviously, 27-20, we'll take it. Look, I thought the Ravens defense was going to do more to stop them, but it looked like the complete opposite. The Ravens defense had a really, really hard time stopping Rashee Rice over the middle. Like that was their one, I guess, whether it was what's the word I'm trying to think of? That was their one back heel or Achilles heel. Excuse me. Yeah, Achilles heel. That was the one Achilles heel. Yeah, they couldn't really defend the middle crossers, especially Rashee Rice. He had open space, and then we saw Xavier Worthy, and his speed is ridiculous, and we saw why he was the fastest. It was an end around that looked like it was going to be a dead play, and then all of a sudden he's in the end zone. And you're saying how did he get from there to there? And you're thinking a blink of an eye. So obviously when they have speed like that, it's hard. The Ravens did look a little slow, defensively, yesterday, and offensively, I don't know really why it looked like on the first drive, they were really establishing the run with Derrick Henry, and then they kind of just abandoned it. Obviously maybe it was the game script or whatever, but in the end, this game barely finished under. Obviously, it could have finished over, but thank God Isaiah Likely's toe was out of bounds. So obviously that did push for that under 47. I did obviously give out the Ravens +3 as a lean, but I saw so many sides. I didn't really like, I was liking the Chiefs, obviously, as you had them on the money line, and, all the systems pointing to the Ravens, and I was just more targeting the total. Primetime under is definitely going to be a system for us this year. And look, even though it was sweaty, it still hit. So that's obviously all that matters. 27-20, we'll take that win. Obviously, very sweaty, but you know what? A win's a win. Obviously, great start to the NFL season for me. 1-0. So we'll gladly take that there. Ari, I know your same game parlay hit as well. So that's a great way to start our seasons out. How'd you do?
Yeah, Rice was about, as free as it gets, as you could say. He had 3 catches for, I think it was 46 yards, like right off the bat. And he had like a 1 catch at the line of scrimmage for 1 yard. So he was at 4 for 47. And then the second quarter, he didn't really do anything, but I was still, feeling confident, even if he had 47 at half, still feeling good. And then he had a couple more big catches, and he wound up with just over 100. So that was, that was not sweaty at all. Obviously, the Chiefs' money line was the sweaty part with how the game ended, but I honestly didn't think that they were going to drive the whole field on that last drive. Obviously, they had the one big. They're giving Likely all the short catches, out of bounds. I was like, I get giving that, but it's like at some point you can't just keep giving up those plays over and over again. It's going to add up, and then that resulted in them finding Bateman downfield to get inside the 10, and that's when all the chaos ensued. When the 1st and goal, I thought Isaiah Likely broke his arm or separated his shoulder with the way he landed, and 2 plays later he's back in the game. 2nd and goal, Lamar misses Zay Flowers wide open in the end zone. And then after the game, he was saying that he was targeting Bateman. He thought he was going to be in that area. So I have no idea what happened on that play, obviously. And then obviously it was the last play of the game, the Kevin Durant toe on the line, Isaiah Likely toe on the line. So, obviously glad we won our bets. And then, that was about as good of a game as it gets for a season opener. And obviously, we should have another fun game tonight, and then a lot more action this weekend. So looking forward to it all.
Yeah, you mentioned, very, cinematic ending yesterday with that Ravens-Chiefs game. You mentioned, the toe on the line, the Kevin Durant, the new Isaiah Likely, and obviously in this press conference, Isaiah Likely, very, very emotional and very, adamant about how, the Chiefs got lucky, but, they've gotten lucky against y'all pretty frequently. So we'll see how that goes if they do meet again. But obviously, just focusing on our bets yesterday, that was a great winner for us. Obviously, 2-0 day. Obviously, with you hitting your same game parlay with the Chiefs money line, and then Rashee Rice, you mentioned his over yards was free. As you mentioned, he had, I think, he had a few receptions, but he just, took it off. Like I said, the Ravens couldn't really defend those middle crossing routes. And, it was Rashee Rice, he'd find himself over the middle open space and just take it off upfield. So that was nice to see, obviously, for you with the Chiefs money line and Rashee Rice, and obviously with my under. Great way to start the season. As you mentioned, we have plenty of games this weekend. It starts off tonight, Friday. We got a few games, obviously, in the NFL. Obviously, one game in the NFL with the Packers and Chiefs. We have a few games in college football. Didn't really like anything there for me. But what I would say personally, if I had to lean, I maybe lean the under in tonight's Packers-Eagles game. Obviously, we talked about neutral field unders. They actually went undefeated last year. I know this total has been, hovering around that 50-ish, 49 mark around there. So I do like that under if I had to lean anything. Ari, if you do like anything, in tonight's Eagles-Packers game, do you like anything? Or if you have any leans, what do you like?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything. I'm just going to watch the game. I don't have anything official in it. I mean, I guess if I had to give a lean, it would be the Packers. I think there's value there for them to pull it out, but nothing official for me in that game.
Yeah, we didn't want to take anything. Like I said, it's a weird game. It's in Sao Paulo, Brazil, with just all of this, hoopla with just Brazil and how, their politics or whatever you want to get into. Just a lot of things going on down there, and, just, weather and all of that. The stadium just didn't want to take anything, because, you never know. Anything could happen in this. And it's just such a weird game. So didn't want to take anything in tonight's Packers-Eagles game. But obviously we do have some stuff over the weekend we want to give out. This is why you're here, obviously, the best bets for the entire weekend. But first, we're going to start off with Saturday, obviously, for college football. Obviously, starting tomorrow, so get those bets in as soon as you can. First, arguably one of the days of the game here in Colorado, Nebraska. I'm just going to take that first half over here. 28, got it at minus 105. I didn't really like any kind of lean in this game. You look at the systems, right? Deion Sanders 6-2 ATS all the time as an underdog. So Colorado spread looking a little intriguing, but Deion Sanders 1-7 straight up as an underdog. So Colorado money line not looking really intriguing right now. So you look at these offenses then, right? You have Dylan Raiola throwing the ball for Nebraska. He looked really good last week, right? Do you expect him to have somewhat of similar success against a Colorado defense that has been very, very anemic at times? We saw it last week against North Dakota State. Colorado, they couldn't really do anything to stop their offense. It was surprising, but obviously we have to give credit to North Dakota State because their offense obviously is very good. But, Colorado, one of their main problems was obviously stopping the run, which obviously they did a great job of. But in terms of, their secondary was still a really big issue. They couldn't defend any of those wide receivers. And you look at Nebraska, obviously talented in the secondary, talented in the receiver room. Obviously with Dylan Raiola throwing the ball, obviously, the 5-star, I think, makes it a lot better. So I just think I'm just more backing points. I do think, maybe it takes a little bit to get themselves under, their foot. But I do think, all we're really backing is pretty much 14 points from both teams. And I think both teams can pretty much get 2 touchdowns, essentially. You look at Colorado, obviously, they're quick hitting, quick offense. We saw it last week, deep ball shots down the field, the Hail Mary throws from Shedeur Sanders to make him look good. And that's their offense. If the run's not working, they're going to throw the deep ball and, get big yard plays. And, that's how Colorado moves their offense down the field so fast, right? And that's how, I think this first half is going to go over. I think, if Nebraska responds, if Nebraska, gets that first touchdown or whoever does, I think we're going to have a quick response. And I think it's just going to be one of those games where not like Colorado TCU like last year, but I think it could be, one of those games where it just kind of goes back and forth because you look at both offenses and you see, wow, like very talented receivers. You obviously on Colorado, Travis Hunter, the dual threat, obviously, who plays, DB and wide receiver, obviously, and then Shedeur Sanders, their relationship is pretty much like this. So where Shedeur Sanders throws it, Travis Hunter can find some way to catch it. We saw last week. So I'm just going to take points here. If I did have, in terms of a side, I didn't really like a side, obviously, as I mentioned, Colorado, Dion as a dog, 6-2 against the spread, but 1-7 straight up. Don't really like that. So I'm going to take the points here in the first half. I think there's going to be a lot of excitement in the first half. So I'm taking that first half over 28. I got it at -105 yesterday. And then in a sneaky game tomorrow night, we're going to take App State on the points here. I got it when it opened at 18. I know it's all the way down to 6.5. If you want, you can maybe buy up a half point to 17, but I got it as soon as it opened because I targeted this game because I found out as soon as I found out that Clemson's next game was against App State, I said I'm taking App State on the money line. No, excuse me, App State on the spread. There is nothing on this Clemson offense that is consistently proved to me that they're 18 points better than App State. There's nothing. What have you seen from Clemson's offense? Cade Klubnik, my goodness. That man should be joining DJU and Mr. I need to find a job on Indeed because these guys are not they're not great quarterbacks. They're sufficeable, but in terms of winning you a game, right? What are they going to do? We saw last year, I think with that Clemson Duke game where Klubnik turned the ball over 2-3 times, couldn't get anything moving. They were on almost upset alert all game. I think that's one of these games. You look at App State. Right, their defense had a great showing last week, and it was an FCS game, but you got to take as much as you can. When you look at FCS versus FBS opponents, you can only take so much because there's the disparity of level of competition. But when you see a dominant game for App State, I really think that their defense can do just enough. They have a good ground game, so I think they're going to keep this game close. Obviously, the thing with Clemson is that obviously the fact that they are a good running team. That's what they have pretty much been clamoring on. I can say probably for the past 2 years, with their running game, kind of being the lead, sort of their offense, obviously with Mr. Cade Klubnik throwing the ball. Look, I'm so sick of that guy. That guy sucks. Okay. App State looked really good last week against ETSU. They won by 28, but they put up 500 yards of offense. That was pretty much the thing that I love is the fact when you look at, an offense, if they can put up a bunch of yards, and even though they struggled on third downs, completing over 50%, they completed 3 out of 3 in the red zone. And I love finishing in the red zone. If you can finish in the red zone, obviously that's a big, thing for me in terms of taking a spread. So I think this spread is a little too high. Obviously it's going down for a reason. I think, Clemson's offense this is more of a prove it to me bet. I don't think Clemson's offense is 18 points better than App State. So I'm going to prove it to me, Clemson. Prove it. I'm taking App State on the points here, plus 18. Like I said, I know that spread is going down. I think I mentioned it, it's all the way down to around 16.5. So if you want to buy up a half point to maybe App State plus 17, that's also okay as well. But I probably would take it around 16.5 as the final mark. I know it's probably going to drip down to the 15s, and I think Clemson could potentially win this game by 2 touchdowns. So, I think App State, definitely does enough to keep this game interesting at first, maybe. So I'm thinking App State plus the 18 here at -135. And then in one of the late night games of Saturday night, we're taking Liberty -21.5. And you're thinking, who is Liberty University? Well, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you. The only reason, 2 reasons. 2 reasons I'm taking this bet. Ari, look up Liberty's uniforms. Those uniforms, my goodness. Those are clean. And on the other side, do you want to know how bad New Mexico State is? They lost the yardage battle to an FCS school at home. They got outgained at home by Southeast Missouri State. They should have lost that game. So miraculously, they won. Both quarterbacks did not throw for more than 100 yards. And you're giving them 22 points against the team that that put up points in the CUSA, went all the way. Remember that game against Oregon? Why was Liberty ever playing Oregon in the Fiesta Bowl? For God's sake, what a disaster that was. But I'm taking Liberty today. Look, we still have Salter, Kaden Salter, obviously the quarterback. The dual threat for Liberty. He's still throwing the ball for Liberty Flames this year, and I think obviously they do just enough on the road here. I'm more fading New Mexico State. Like this team literally just almost lost to Southeast Missouri State last week. They should have lost. They were down 16-13, I think, at halftime or something. And if that's pretty much telling of how bad New Mexico State is going to be, I'm going to fade them all year. I love Liberty here. They're the better team, better offense. Obviously, their defense is a little bit of a suspect, but if they're playing against an offense that couldn't even put up 300 yards against Southeast Missouri State. So I'm going to back Liberty here. So those are my 3 plays for Saturday. Going on with Colorado, Nebraska first half over 28. I'm taking App State on the points here. Like I said, I know that line's all the way down to 16.5. If you want to buy it up half a point, you can at 17, but I got it when it opened at 18. I wanted to target this line early because I knew this line was probably going to drop. And then Liberty, I'm taking them on the points minus 21.5. I know right now it's at 22. Just take it 21.5. If you really, really are nervous, you can obviously take it at 21 for that push potential, obviously. But I love 21.5. I think it's a great number. I think Liberty, absolutely beats the break off a New Mexico State team that both quarterbacks, both, not just one, both could not even combine for throw them more than 100 yards. So I'm going to take Liberty on the points there. Those are my 3 Saturday best bets. Ari, I know you probably got something cooked up for tomorrow. What do you like in week 2 of the college football slate?
Yep, 3 plays for me as well. Start off with 2 unders. We'll start off with, even though it's not the ABC game, the primetime game, I think it's still probably the game of the day in Texas, Michigan. And I'm just going with the first half under as my main play in this game. We've seen the total in the full game slowly creep down from what I've been seeing the past day or two. I think it's at 42. I'm just going with them just to start off slow, both teams. Obviously, the narrative is Texas to blow them out based on what happened last week, but I still think Michigan's defense is going to make things really tough on Texas. I mean, I think Quinn Ewers, when he's forced to, when you can't balance the run and the pass, and he's going to pass, is where I think he's going to struggle. When you can get the run game going and all that, and you make it less predictable, that's when Quinn Ewers does best. But Michigan's defense, despite what we saw last week with their offense, their defense is still really strong. And then on the other end, I think we're going to see Michigan try to establish the run game with their backfield. So I see it's been kind of a sluggish, kind of slow start first half. I lean under full game too. I'm just a little bit more confident in them just starting off slow in the first half. With Michigan looking to establish a run and then them causing havoc on Ewers and Texas offense. So my only worry with how low this total is like, 1 turnover at least, so a quick touchdown. That's the only kind of risk, or not the only risk, but that's the biggest risk or concern for a low total like this. But in general, I think we're going to see a more dominant defensive performance by Michigan, and then them looking to establish the run early to run the clock and all of that. So that's my first play, is the first half under 20.5 in the Texas Michigan game. And then we're going to another under in the morning in the first leg, Kansas State Tulane. This is mostly just a kind of a fade of Kansas State's offense. I mean, obviously, you can only take so much from them crushing UT Martin, but and I think Tulane's not going to get much themselves offensively against Kansas State's defense and all that. So I think obviously Avery Johnson's is a dual threat run. So another one where I'm just kind of looking at Kansas State's going to control the game with their running game, and I think we're going to see, like a 30-10 type of game, 30-6, something along those lines. So I think this game's going to go under pretty comfortably is what I'm expecting. And then my third play is kind of a weird play or a weird game because it's Baylor-Utah. It's a conference game. It's non-conference because the game was scheduled before Utah moved to the conference. And next week it's the same thing for Arizona against Kansas State. Is also non-conference for the same reason, but that's next week, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just too many points for you. I mean, Utah's at home. That should be a pretty big favorite, but I think Baylor is going to keep it at least competitive enough to keep it within 7 to 10 points. I think that they could make it kind of weird and close towards the end as well. Obviously, the hype on Utah, they're the consensus favorite in the Big 12 with the return of Cam Rising and, just the scheme and all of that under Whittingham and all of that. But I think for a conference game, even though I'm not like big on Baylor or anything at all, I just think they can keep it easily within 2 scores. And again, it's kind of a weird conference, but non-conference. A conference game, it doesn't count towards a conference record. It's kind of obviously the first kind of big, well, not the first big game, but I just think they keep it within 2 scores. If the spread was a little bit lower, I wouldn't maybe not be as confident. But if you can get it with the half, with the hook on the 14, that's where I kind of like Baylor right here.
Yeah, first you mentioned Texas Michigan. I was loving that under when it opened, I think around like 45 or something. And you mentioned it's been going down throughout the week. As you mentioned, it's around 40, 42, around 42 is 42 and a half. So you mentioned just taking the first half. I like that as well. With Michigan, obviously they're going to be establishing their defense. Obviously, that's the one thing they are definitely going to be carrying from last year on their national championship run to this year. They're obviously their defensive prowess, obviously. And then obviously on the offensive side, there's still questions with the quarterback room, but obviously with the dominant run room led by Donovan Edwards, it's going to be Michigan trying to establish the run early. Obviously on the other side for Texas, obviously we've seen their offense obviously now after last week against Colorado State, but obviously it's a big test going up to the big house, obviously. But I will credit Texas. They did it last year against Bama, going into Alabama and winning. So, you never, and obviously I think the books are giving Texas that credit, obviously, with giving them about 7 points going to the big house. So, I just like that first half under as well. You mentioned, quick scores or a turnover can pretty much ruin this first half under for us. But I do like that first half under 20 and a half. I think it's going to be a pretty low scoring first half. I think both offenses kind of get themselves going, try to establish their offenses still. And I do like the full game under as well. Then you mentioned K-State, Tulane. You mentioned K-State, obviously more of the defensive team this year. That's pretty much evident. Their offense is led by Avery Johnson, dual threat, obviously, but their offense is not the greatest. It's not going to be what they're leaning on, especially throughout that Big Ten. It's going to be very defensive heavy, for K-State. And obviously they're going to Tulane, and Tulane, obviously they lost a lot of just talent, obviously, whether it was the draft or the portal. I think their offense definitely took a big step back as well. So I do think, that under is a great look for you. And then Baylor, you mentioned, it's a weird, it's non-conference, but because, Utah is in Big 12 now, it looks like a conference game, but obviously because, that home away series was scheduled when Utah was a member of the Pac-12 still. Obviously, it's still a non-conference game for them, but obviously Baylor is in a conference team for Utah, and I still think Baylor can potentially do some funky backdoor cover here. As you mentioned, maybe Utah's up maybe 38-17 or something, and then all of a sudden Baylor gets a last second touchdown, ends by lose by 14. That's all we need right there. So I can definitely see some backdoor shenanigans happening for Baylor to cover that spread for you. So those are Ari's best plays for Saturday. Obviously continuing with my best plays for Saturday, but now obviously the moment you have been all waiting for, Sunday NFL best bets. We're here. All right, we finally are back. We get a full Sunday slate. And first, I'm starting with the Raiders. Yes, we're taking them plus the 3 on the money line, plus 130 on the money line, minus 110 for the plus 3 here. This is more of a system play, but also a fading the whole Chargers, team right now. You look at the Chargers right now, right? Their offense, what attracts you about that Chargers offense outside of Justin Herbert, who has had some inconsistencies? Obviously, it's more of the ground game that Jim Harbaugh wants to establish. He brings in J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, obviously the two backs from Baltimore, who the other Harbaugh brother had great use with, but now as a member of the Chargers. I think that's pretty much what they're going to be leaning on, because you look at the receiver room, and the receiver room is, the receiver room is interesting. And that's what I'm more just backing on here with this defense for the Raiders. Obviously, one of the better run defenses. We talked about them last year, kind of establishing the run defense. Antonio Pierce, obviously a coach's, defensive coach-minded guy. They already know that the Chargers are going to try to establish the run early, and I think he's going to try and stop that. You look at the Raiders' offense, there hasn't been, it's not anything to get too excited about, obviously, but I think they do just enough to beat the Chargers on Sunday. Obviously, led by my boy Gardner Minshew, Goku. So of course, I got to celebrate that. But like I said, in that Shane Steichen system, you mentioned he did fairly well as a backup quarterback should do. But now in the different system, I think this could be could be good or bad for him, but at the end of the day, I think with how the system is fit around him, I think could be really good, because obviously they're going to just they're going to give the ball off to Zamir White. And Antonio Pierce has said this in press conference. He said he's expecting them to give, I think, 15 to 20 carries a game potentially. So he's going to be their workhorse back. And I think, with Zamir White, I think he has that ability to get out in open space with a power back like him, because I don't think they really like Josh Jacobs for that reason. He wasn't really a power running back. That's not really fitting into Antonio Pierce's system. That's Zamir White, and I think that we can see a full emergence of Zamir White this year. I'm really high on him, and I'm just with this whole Chargers team, I'm not really high on them at all. With the bottom three teams in the AFC West, outside of the Chiefs, obviously, I'd say the Raiders are the best of the three. I think they can definitely steal this game on the road, especially when you talk about the Chargers Chargers home games. They have no fans. It's basically a road game, but a home game for the road team because all their fans just show up, especially for the Raiders. They're right there. Raider fans are going to show up. They show up everywhere. They're everywhere. But I really do think the Raiders do cover this 3 here. I do like them sprinkling the money line at plus 130, but I'm more confident on them covering the 3. We look at divisional, I think it was divisional road dogs in week 1. I think they're covering at like a 60% clip right now. Very impressive. I know everything's pointing toward the Raiders plus 3. I'm not sold on this Chargers team right now. There's nothing that's telling me to take them on the money line. Their defense is aging. Obviously it's just evolving, but it's definitely aging. I mean, their offense, obviously, there's nothing to brag about because they traded all their wide receivers. And I mean, it's just a bunch of, rookies and, young guys who haven't really got their stardom yet. I mean, the running back room, obviously, is what they're going to be reliant on. So I'm just taking the Raiders plus 3, sprinkling the money line at plus 110. That's my biggest bet of the weekend, I'd definitely say, putting a little bit over a unit on that one. And then we're going to go take Tennessee, take the Titans plus 4.5, plus 110. Oh, but Caleb Williams is starting. He's going to make his debut. Let me stop you right there. Ari, did you know since the merger, there have been 27 QBs picked number 1? 4 of them in their week 1 game have won that game straight up. And they're 7-20 against the spread. That's not good. That's not good. So 4 wins out of the 27 quarterbacks that have played week 1 and 7-20 ATS. Look, that line's going in the other direction for a reason. I got the Titans. I think around -1. I think I got them at -110 at plus 4.5, plus 4.5 yesterday. I think I checked earlier this morning down to 4. I don't even know where it's at right now, but it's going in the right direction. I think the Titans make this game interesting. I don't know if they win this game all outright, but I think they make this game really interesting and close. You look at the weapons, right? For Tennessee, and I know it's not pretty. It's ugly. I know it's really ugly, but I think they do just enough, right? I think they do just enough to keep this game interesting. I'm not the most confident on this, obviously. It's more of a system play, just back in the system. I think Caleb Williams, look, it's his first true NFL game. All the eyes are going to be on him. Obviously, everyone's going to be watching him, especially with how many expectations there are for this offense. Everyone's going to be probably loading up the Bears money line or Bears -3 because, the Bears are going to have a big step up this year. And, obviously their offense is going to be the main part with Caleb Williams. And I think that will happen, but I think they still need to gel things out. And, obviously I'm not really 100% that Caleb Williams, makes this, a blowout or anything. I think the Titans make this thing interesting. Obviously, we'll have Will Levis in another full year under at the quarterback position. They bring in Calvin Ridley as a wide receiver. Obviously, we talk about, there was news that D-Hop over this offseason, obviously, with his surgery, he did tear his not MCL. Sorry, that was my ACL. I tore my ACL. DeAndre Hopkins tore his MCL slightly, but he did get the surgery. But there is some, I guess, uncertainty, but not, I guess, a lot of uncertainty that he's playing on Sunday. But I would definitely be on the safer side that he is going to be playing. So you have D-Hop and you have Calvin Ridley as your wide receivers 1 and 2, throwing you the ball, as well as a running back room that's not the greatest, but I think Tajay Spears does have a shot to pretty much be emerging back in that system. So I'm just thinking the Titans make this game fun and make this game interesting here. So I'm taking them plus the 4.5. I got it yesterday about -110. I know that's grown. So if you want to take the Titans plus 4, I think that's a great look as well. But once it gets around to that 3 number, I'm staying away. I think the Titans make this game interesting up around plus 4 or 4.5. So that's my second play for Sunday. And then my third play for Sunday, we're taking the Panthers Panthers plus the 4. Just taking all the dogs on Sunday. Loving all the dogs on Sunday. Brings all the dogs out on Sunday here. Panthers plus 4, minus 112 here. Look, I'm really low on the Saints here. The Saints are bad. The Saints are going to be really bad this year, right? They're already in cap hell. We already know that. And Ari, I don't know if you know this, but not only Dennis Allen and Derek Carr as favorites, 33 and 36 against the spread. Yikes. They stink. They can't cover. These motherfuckers can't cover for anything. So what we're going to do, I'm taking the Panthers plus 4. And I know it's risky when you look at it, but when I look at the Panthers, right, I think they can take some steps up from year 1 to year 2. And there's also another system on them. The system is you look at teams that got swept in their division the year before that are playing them the year after. And Panthers, here they are. They got swept obviously because this team only won 2 games last year, but they got swept by the Saints last year. So I'm taking them plus 4. I think obviously with the additions they made this offseason, right? They bring in Deontay Johnson, right? Obviously, we're not going to see any Jonathan Brooks for a while, but I think the Panthers, obviously, they drafted him that high for a reason. So once he does come back, there is some excitement there. But in terms of this game specifically, I think the Panthers make this game fun. I think it's going to be like a Titans game, making this a 3-point game. I would potentially sprinkle the Panthers on the money line, but I think that's maybe being a little too confident because you're backing a team that just won 2 games. So you got to think like, do you really think this team is going to win or this game? So I don't know if they win, but I do know that they make this close. I would sprinkle the win, but I know the Panthers, that defense, look, it's not pretty. We've seen up and downs of the Panthers all season, but I think right now, I think it's a great way to buy them on this price here at plus 4, going against, the Saints, who all the systems are pointing to the Panthers. You look at the Saints, and I'm low on this team, obviously. The receivers, outside of Olave, there's not really much excitement, obviously, for that receiving room. You look at the running back room, and yes, it's Alvin Kamara, but, he's going to be more of the power back because Derek Carr, that dude sucks. Derek Carr is so bad. Under pressure, Derek Carr is like a bottom 5 quarterback in football. When there's no pressure in his face, Derek Carr is like a top 10. So he's mid. And I'm not going to back that. I don't really like Derek Carr and this whole Saints team. Like I said, I think the Saints may end up being one of the worst teams in football. And I think the Panthers, and the Saints, I think they're going to be battling out in that division for last. But I think the Panthers potentially make this game close, maybe even steal one on the road. So I'm taking the Panthers here plus the 4. So those are my 3-4-ish picks for Sunday. The Raiders plus 3, sprinkling in the money line. The Titans to cover and the Panthers to cover. All the dogs to cover on Sunday. We're taking them. All those 3, the Raiders, the Titans, and the Panthers. Those are my 3 picks for Sunday. Ari, I know you got something cooked up for Sunday. What do you like for Sunday's NFL slate?
Yep. Starting off with a team that I've been backing all offseason in the Colts. Obviously, to me, this is like the Texans look like, outside of the obvious, like the Bengals, obviously, the Texans are going to be in a lot of, money line parlays and all that. And I think it's a dangerous spot. Obviously there's the uncertainty, no doubt, of the first game back for Anthony Richardson, but he dominated in the 4 games he played in last year before he got hurt. So I'm not overly worried about, the long absence. He's been practicing all throughout training camp, and he played in the preseason and all of that. And I'm just backing, a team that I believe that can. This division's been weird. Like the last couple of years, the heavy favorite entering the year did not win the division, and I feel it's going to be the same thing this year. Obviously, this year the Texans are a pretty heavy favorite. Like any sort of minus money to win the division is a pretty heavy favorite. Usually, every team is at least even the favorites plus something. So I would say any sort of minus money is a pretty heavy favorite compared to other divisions. And I think the Colts are going to make it weird. And I think it starts off with this weekend. I'm taking both plus 3 and sprinkling on the money line. I think either way it's going to be a close game, no matter which way it goes. So I see value in both the spread and the money line there. So I'm taking, that's my one underdog play that I like, against underdog for this weekend. And then going to the Seahawks at home I think this is about as bad a matchup as it gets for a rookie quarterback to come into Seattle against a defensive mastermind like McDonald, who's going to scheme up all these different looks, towards Knicks. And then you have, the debut of the Ryan Grubb Seahawks offense against, the Broncos defense is solid. And, it'll be fun to see Metcalf on Surtain. But the thing is that under Grubb, Metcalf's going to move around all over. So I don't know if Surtain's going to shadow him like every single play, both sides of the field in the slot, like kind of like all over. So then, we're going to see just a lot of creativity, let's just say, out of the offense. I mean, the last 2 years, the Seahawks ranked dead last in total offensive snaps. That's definitely not going to come remotely close to happening this year under Grubb. We're not going to see all the run, 2 runs at the middle and then pass like we saw so often in the past couple of years. A lot more motion, pre-snap. I mean, I think the Seahawks it was the preseason, obviously, but the Seahawks led all teams in pre-motion, kind of in motion pre-snap throughout the preseason, and that was not even the full offense, obviously. So we're going to see a lot of motion, movement, quick pass, quick plays, everything that we did not see the past couple years under Pete Carroll and Shane Waldron in Seattle. So I think the Seahawks are going to win this game by double digits. I think they're going to cover the spread pretty comfortably. And then go into another favorite on Sunday Night Football, the Lions, who opened the season with a win outright as a huge underdog last year against the Chiefs. Now they play the Rams, who I think they're going to take a pretty big step, not a big step back, but a step back defensively. Obviously, losing Aaron Donald, losing their defensive coordinator. They just traded Ernest Jones last week, who I think is probably their best linebacker, arguably. And then one of the corners, Darius Williams, got put in IR yesterday. So super banged up / missing some players on defense. Their offense is still going to be good out to the Rams, but I think the Lions are going to be too much. I think they're going to control the clock with, Montgomery and Gibbs. And then when they open up the passing game with the running game, it'll be Amon-Ra, Laporta, Jameson, all of that in the passing game. So, I think it could be competitive in the first half. I think the Lions are going to pull away late at home and win by at least a touchdown. I'm going with 2 pretty decently big favorites to cover, and then a dog to cover and hopefully win outright on this first Sunday NFL of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I like how we're both, taking dogs to win and on the money line. I'm on the Raiders +3 on the money line. Obviously, you're on the Colts +3 on the money line. I see your vision there, obviously, big system on the Colts as well, home divisional dogs. I think they're 60% against the spread, in history, and obviously pointing to the Colts +3, obviously sprinkling the Colts money line. It's funny, this game opened at the Houston Texans being, I think, 1.5 point underdogs, or way back at the beginning, of the season when the schedule dropped. And then throughout the whole entire offseason, that line shifted from Houston being a dog to all of them Houston being now one of the most public favorites of the weekend. So definitely a big, I'd say, out of all the off-season swings, I definitely say that was the biggest one in terms of the line movement. So I do like the Colts potentially. I'm not for me personally, I'm not, just because obviously I have my Texans bet, but I see your vision there with Texans, with the Colts +3 on the money line there. Look, Seahawks can always back the Seahawks there for you, and obviously I do like this. You mentioned with just the whole new regime in Seattle, I think this could potentially be a lot of problems for Bo Nix. I've seen a lot of, I don't know why, a lot of steam on the Broncos to cover, with a lot of bets coming that way. And I don't know why you're backing Bo Nix in any way, shape, or form in one of the loudest stadiums in the NFL. You're backing a rookie on the road in one of the worst environments for a road rookie in this first game of the season. I just want you to realize that. That's who you're backing when you're backing Bo Nix. And I love Seattle at home. You mentioned
I've seen some of those people say that they thought the spread should be bigger, but I mean, I don't know how you like obviously it's still Sean Payton and he still gets respect. So I don't think, I see people thinking that they should be more than touchdown favorite, and that's why the Broncos are a sharp play. But I don't think you could make them a bigger favorite than 6. With the Sean Payton still gets some respect as a coach, obviously. So I think that's why people like Denver. But yeah, I don't see that logic myself.
Yeah, I was about to say, even the Cardinals, who, they have the worst defense in the NFL, they're getting 6.5 right now against the Bills, who obviously they have a bunch of offensive changes, but still they're getting 6.5. And that's one of the worst defenses, if not the worst in the NFL. So I think the Seahawks, I love that play. I'm also on the Seahawks as well this weekend. You mentioned, the whole new offensive regime with Garub calling the plays now. Obviously, it's preseason, but obviously it's a preview of what is going to happen in the season. And obviously, the Seahawks using a lot more pre-motion, quick plays, obviously a new look, but obviously a great new look for this offense. You look at the defense, obviously, you kind of, after last night, you can kind of say maybe Mike Macdonald was a lot more to the Ravens defense than a lot of people were thinking, because the Ravens defense, they could not stop anything over the center. And we talked about the Ravens defense last year being, the number one scoring defense in the NFL. Obviously, you can say maybe that's more of the Ravens, but to me last night, maybe that was more of Mike Macdonald. I think he brings all that energy, obviously, to Seattle. We've seen the resurgence a little bit in the preseason, but it still looks like a complete day and night. The defensive line looks absolutely fearsome. They look like they're going to attack the quarterback. You see Devin Witherspoon in the secondary. That man's going to crash out any second. Devin Witherspoon is a certified crash out anytime. But it's his intensity. You can see it on the field. I think the Seahawks do cover this. I think there's been reverse line movement. Obviously, I talked about, the Broncos getting all the bets, but the line's been growing and growing. So I like that Seahawks spread for you -6. And then the Lions on Sunday night, I have them as a money line play as well. I love the Lions on Sunday night. You mentioned, this Rams team, their defense is looking different. Obviously, no Donald. Thank God. Thank God Aaron Donald is gone. I answer my prayers. But Aaron Donald's gone. No Raheem Morris, obviously. A lot of changes. This is not going to be the Rams defense that won the Super Bowl a couple years ago. I'm going to tell you that right now. It's not that Rams defense. It's a different team. It's a different team. And I think it's going to be playing evident this year. Obviously, we talk about the Rams offense kind of being, the reason they're going to be in these close games. Obviously, Stafford, Kyron Williams, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, all the big names on that offense. I think the Lions, with their big offense, obviously, and playing at home, Jared Goff in domes, one of the most profitable systems in football. He's playing 14 of those in domes. He's playing 14 out of the 17 in domes. So I love the Lions here as an early big home favorite. Well, not big home favorite, but -3.5. I know that line was open at 3.5, and it's growing, obviously, going in the right direction. I think the Lions do win this game outright. You mentioned, I think the Rams keep this game interesting in the first half, but I think the Lions, just their star running back duo with Montgomery and Gibbs, obviously, there's a lot of excitement for J-Mo out of that camp as well, with Amon-Ra and Laporta already being star receivers for that team. I think the Lions do end this game with a dominant note. So I think that's great 3 plays for you with the Colts, Seahawks, and Lions. My 3 plays for Sunday, the Raiders, the Titans, and the Panthers all to cover. I'm also sprinkling the Raiders to win that game on the money line. Obviously, I know I rambled a lot, but you can find all these plays here on our Troy Below AKP Sports Talk. What we're going to do, we're going to post Saturday's games, obviously all the college football games, all of that will be posted momentarily. But for all the Sunday games, we're going to be posting that card Saturday night. So make sure you look out for that Saturday night so you can get those picks in. But obviously, that's going to do it for this episode of AKP Sports Talk. That's Ari. I'm Priya. And of course, on Monday, so in a few days, on Monday, we will be recapping all of these bets and, of course, previewing the Monday Night Football game between the Jets and the Niners in the Bay. So that's going to do it for this episode of AKP Sports Talk. We appreciate you guys coming in for our first loaded Friday of the year. That's Ari. I'm Priya. We will be back on Monday to recap and preview the Jets game. See you guys.